Hello and welcome to Chesapeake Weekly. Well, this weekend marks 20 years since the terrorist attacks that forever changed our nation and the world. It's a moment in history when we all know exactly where we were and what we were doing when we heard the news. And it was in the days after when we truly saw what it meant to be an American as heroes from all across the country put down what they were doing in their own community and flocked to New York City, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. First responders from right here in Chesapeake were among the many heroes who responded in the days after 9/11. One of them, Chesapeake firefighter Faith Gayhart, a native of New York, found herself heading north to a place she once called home, to a scene she will never forget.
We got to the Jacob Javits Convention Center and said, we're here to help. Tell us, what we can do to help, where we need to go, and where we can get some rest in the evenings. And they directed us to a hotel. And they said we were going to work at the 6th Precinct, which is where the bomb squad was, where they lost 2 officers. One was a detective, the other was uniform patrol. And they asked us to respond to that next morning. And the one thing that I remember was, I don't remember if they shuttled us in that morning. I don't remember taking our vehicles, but what I do remember is driving down the West Side Highway, and it was still dark out, and the streets were lined with people standing there with signs, just yelling and cheering, and they had these signs that said, "We love you," and "Thank you," and "You're our heroes." And I remember thinking, we're not heroes, we're just trying to help. We are blessed that we work in jobs where we can help where other people want to help and they don't have that access. So I felt like I was given a gift by having the career that allowed me to step foot to that war zone to help out in whatever way we could.
So how did you help? What were you doing in those days?
When we got to the precinct, they said, listen, we've been here 2 weeks and we've got 2 guys missing. We know you guys want to work on the pile, but we need to be on the pile looking for our people. So if you could stay here. The block was shut down because it was the bomb squad. And they said, we need people at every corner 24 hours a day watching this block and controlling who has access, because it was also a residential area. So people that lived on that street still had to be able to come and go. Officers had to be able to come and go. And we had to identify everybody that accessed that street. So they took us down to the pile multiple times. And when we weren't down there, we just controlled the foot traffic and made sure.
I think it's easy for people who are not in, the first response business to forget that there's so many parts that you didn't see on the news that had to be dealt with.
Right.
There was also still a city to run and still,
Correct.
Crimes to solve and all that sort of stuff that did sort of go on. And it sounds like you guys were able to help fill in some of those gaps as well.
We sure did. We did. And in all reality, everybody wants to go to the pile and go help search, but we can't go and do what we want to do. We have to help in whatever way best serves them. And after 2 weeks of their officers not being home, I was willing to do whatever they needed. And those poor guys were so exhausted, just mentally exhausted and physically exhausted. They haven't seen their families. They're looking for their missing officers. They know that at the time when we went, they thought the death count was still somewhere between 50 and 60,000. So it was still utter devastation on so many levels. So I remember them taking us down there one day, and I remember standing in the middle of it and looking around and being so disoriented and thinking, this is not my home. I don't even know where I am. Nothing looks familiar. And the officer said to me, she said to all of us, look at your boots. And we all looked down. And she said, see that ash on your boots? That's the ash of 50 to 60,000 people who were no longer here. And I will never forget that moment. And those boots are so significant. You know, you think there were so many people that have lost loved ones, and there's a piece of their DNA on those boots.
Thank you so much, Faith, for giving us your time and for telling us your story. If you'd like to see the rest of that interview, you can find that at youtube.com/Chesapeake Television. And thank you to all of our first responders and our military men and women who continue to answer the call whenever a hero is needed. Well, if you'd like to spend some time remembering all that happened on September 11th, 2001, there is a ceremony taking place on Saturday, starting at 8:30 a.m. at the Chesapeake 9/11 Memorial in City Park. Here's more on that event.
As our keynote speaker this year, we're excited to announce that Daniel Rodriguez, otherwise known as the Singing Policeman, will be here with us in the city of Chesapeake for the day. He will be delivering his comments and remarks and his memories about the day he was on duty up there in New York City and how he responded as a police officer to the attacks at the World Trade Center. But the one thing that we're probably even most excited about beyond being able to get Daniel Rodriguez is the unity chain that is being constructed out at Deep Creek High School over the summer, and it's almost complete. The Student Council Association members, with some guidance out there, have built us a 3,000 link chain that will be draped around the fence surrounding the beam. So we've gotten kids involved this year, which is always our goal, to have some children and younger members of the community involved, as they'll be becoming the stewards for ceremonies down the road.
And if you'd like to learn more about the Chesapeake 9/11 Memorial itself, it was a topic of discussion in a recent episode of Peak Life, where we talked all about how the memorial came to be in Chesapeake and how you can help support the memorial efforts. Find that video at youtube.com/Chesapeake Television. Also, on the morning of September 11th, the Chesapeake Sheriff's Office is hosting their annual Freedom Run. This 9.11-mile run takes place on the Dismal Swamp Canal Trail. There's also a 5K and a kids run option. The event starts at 8, and registration for the 9.11-mile run costs just $45. Now, you can also choose to register to run virtually if you can't make it to the trail on Saturday. Proceeds from the event will go to the Fisher House, a home away from home for military families going through a medical crisis, and EVAP, the Elderly and Indigent Victims Assistance Program. For more information and to register to run, find them on Facebook at facebook.com/freedomrun911. Well, now on to emergency preparedness. We're in week 2 of National Preparedness Month, and this week we're talking emergency kits. So remember the toilet paper debacle of 2020? While that was really odd and extreme, it was an important lesson. Don't wait until the disaster strikes to stock up on critical supplies. We also see this all the time when it comes to hurricanes and even snowstorms. Store shelves are suddenly empty right when you go to stock up as the storm is approaching. So now is the time to put together an emergency kit so that you don't have to worry about heading to the store when it's already too late. Here at Chesapeake Television, we really try to practice what we preach and have our kits ready ahead of time, but one of our co-workers needed a little help getting her supplies together. So Karen Myers got together with Joanne Gilbert to make sure that Joanne got her kit together. Take a look.
Hi there, I'm here with Joanne, and we're going to help her put together her hurricane preparedness kit. All right, Joanne, so the first thing we want to do, of course, is we want to have some very important items like this flashlight. So if we lose power, of course, you're going to want a flashlight. And you want to make sure ahead of time the batteries are good to go and have an extra set, of course, as backup. Food, you're going to be hungry, right? And you know you have kids, they're going to be hungry especially. So you want to make sure that you have food on hand, like canned goods, plenty of canned goods. And this particular can has a pop top, but if it doesn't, it's very important to have a can opener, an old school can opener, because you can't rely on an electric one if you lose power, of course.
Well, how am I going to heat that though if I don't have power?
Good question.
Okay.
Perhaps if you have a grill, maybe make sure your propane is filled as well. So that's an excellent question.
Okay.
Yeah. Protein shakes.
Yes.
They're wonderful because, of course, they're nutritious, but they don't necessarily have to be kept cold. So, and they're pretty, you know, you can pack a bunch of them in there. Absolutely. That's always a plus, of course. So,
Now,
what
I
else?
brought some water.
Okay, you brought some water.
The kids love to drink the water, and then the Gatorade.
Yeah,
I thought
definitely.
Maybe electrolytes would keep
Yeah,
us
absolutely. That's
energized.
excellent idea,
Okay.
and especially with the water, because you may not have running water or access to running water. It's very important to have water, so make sure you have enough for every member in your family to sustain you. And this goes with all the supplies for at least 72 hours.
Karen, I heard that when a storm is coming, you're supposed to fill your bathtub.
Yeah, that's
Is that
not
true?
a bad idea. Or
Okay.
any other containers that you may have that you can
Okay.
keep water in for cooking. Like say if you have, you may have a gas stove, or if you have to use your grill, it's always a good
Okay.
idea to just to fill that water up before the storm, of course.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
So-
then the Lysol.
Okay.
What?
Well, Lysol can be used just to keep things clean, and of course, if we lose power, and then of course it could be flooding.
Okay.
You want to make sure that you keep things, and we're not out of the woods quite yet with the pandemic, so we also have some masks. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of those on hand as well. Again, we have wipes, we have spray, and we have hand sanitizer. Any of those things are great to include in your kit. And we don't want to forget the first aid kit. That's very important to have on hand.
Oh, I need that all the time.
I
with my
know,
kids,
but that's
yes.
so you already have it. So make sure you have plenty of everything in there as well. So that's another great thing, along with matches, candles. You may have to use candles, so we want to make sure you have plenty of matches on hand.
That's great.
And let's see, did we talk about prescriptions
No.
and meds? Any type of medicine or prescriptions that you're using, you want to make sure that you have plenty on hand. If you are aware the storm's coming, of course, you would have time to get those filled up. So you want to make sure that you get those prescriptions filled up so that you don't go without them or have to go without them. And so those are just a few things. Go to ready.gov to see a complete list. And
That's
are you good to
great.
go?
Yeah, that's awesome.
all right, so
I would
just
not have thought about half of those things. So
great.
thank you.
So now it's time to get your kits ready.
So ready.gov.
Ready.gov,
Awesome.
great place.
Thank you.
So as they said, ready.gov is a great resource to help you plan for all types of emergencies, and consider lending a hand to family or friends like Joanne who might not have gotten their kit together yet. It often takes the people who are close to us to persuade us to do something. So talk to your loved ones about making a plan and building a kit. And finally, school is back in session. Chesapeake Public Schools opened their doors to kids in all grades this week. Please be aware that your morning and afternoon commutes might be interrupted by a school bus here or there. So have patience and pay attention for kids crossing the road. Now, it's always a good time to have a quick reminder on what to do when you encounter a school bus on the road. So take a look at this graphic. Here's when you must stop for a school bus with flashing red lights and an extended stop sign. You have to stop when your vehicle is going in the same direction behind or next to the bus, when your vehicle is going in the opposite direction, approaching the bus on a road with no median, and at any intersection in any direction. So really the only time you don't have to stop for a school bus with a flashing red light is when you're on the opposite side of the road and there's a physical barrier or median separating the two directions. A turn lane or pavement does not count as a median. It's got to be something like grass or curb or concrete. Well, that's all we've got for you for this week. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next week.